Dragon Ball. This is the big one right here. This is the big one. What can I say about Dragon Ball that hasn't already been said by me or by anyone else? I friggin' love this show. Like I said, this is probably going to be the biggest one. Maybe not the all-time biggest one, but definitely a huge one. Let's start off with the easy stuff. My favorite character is Future Trunks. He's my all-time favorite character. My favorite villain is Cooler, mainly because I just don't like Frieza. That's the main reason. I don't like Frieza, and I just saw Cooler and it's like, you know, he's cooler. He's cooler than Frieza, you know? Plus, I really like the Cooler movie. My second favorite villain would have to be Cell, particularly in his perfect form. I think he's pretty cool. Plus, I like how he's able to use everyone's attacks up at that point. And he almost seems like he would be the perfect villain to end the entire thing. What better way to end the series than by having a character who knows everyone's attacks and is as strong as them all combined at that time? But as far as my other favorite characters go, they would be Gotenks, Vegito, Yamcha, Vegeta, and Goku, obviously. But for my main favorite character, Future Trunks, I have a few reasons why I like him. One, I just think he looks cool, you know, that's a pretty obvious one. The second reason is, you know, he uses a sword and whatnot, you know how I like sword people. Third reason, I like his voices. They do a pretty good job, particularly Takeshi Kuzo in the Japanese version. He does a good job. He makes Trunks seem so polite. He's ultimately, you know, at least Future Trunks, so different than Vegeta. He's all polite and whatnot. If you watch the dub, the Japanese version, he's always saying "excuse me" like every other line whenever he's going by. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. He's like all that good junk. But the main reason why I like him, sort of a two-parter. One, I feel sorry for him and what he has to go through. And two, he is a friggin' selfless guy. I mean, he is so selfless. He does not care about himself or his homeland. Literally, I'm being completely serious. You guys are probably, oh no, he wants to change the future. That's the whole reason. He doesn't want to change his future, though. He wants to change the future. He's quoted by saying, you know, when he's trying to stop Cell from absorbing Android 18, he's saying, I don't care about my future, I just don't want another future to be a living hell. He doesn't care about his future, he already knows it's ruined. What Dragon Ball does with the whole time travel thing is, when a character time travels, it makes a different alternate sort of timeline. I know it's kind of weird to think of, you know, the main storyline of Dragon Ball Z as the alternate timeline, you know, technically, but that's really only from Trunks' point of view. But yeah, he doesn't care about, he knows that he can't do anything. He just wants to protect all the other futures. He wants to make sure that no other future, no other timeline has to deal with that kind of bullshit that Trunks had to go through. I gotta tell you, he's probably under a lot of stress having to, you know, worry about all that stuff. He kind of grew up in sort of a tough time. And it must be pretty dang satisfying to when he goes back to finally kill the androids, and he does it so easily. And then he kills Cell easily because he's like so friggin' powerful. At that point, he can finally relax and think, yes. Can you imagine what that would be like, having to deal with what Trunks went through? Then finally, near the end, you got so powerful that you were able to defeat the androids and Cell. Both of them. I mean, Cell in just his first form, but I mean, like, you know, what's Cell without the androids at that point? Can you imagine how satisfying that would be? That's almost like playing Demon Souls. I keep mentioning Demon Souls. But yeah, that's the main reason why I like Trunks. Everyone else is pretty self-explanatory, almost. Except for maybe Gotenks and Yamcha. I mean, I just like Yamcha because he's really just a carryover from my favorite Dragon Ball character. And Gotenks, he was originally my favorite character. I don't even know why. But, you know, he is. Now onto the show itself. Let me give you guys a little bit of a history. This is sort of going to be a rehash of my thoughts on Dragon Ball Z, but probably better. So if you don't know my thoughts about Dragon Ball Z and you want to know, watch this one instead of my thoughts on Dragon Ball Z. with the whole Dragon Ball franchise, there are ultimately currently 4 ways people could have gotten into the series. Technically 3, because the 4th one is still going on. You probably know what I'm talking about. But I'm only going to talk about 2 of the ways. There are 2 ways that people got into Dragon Ball. There's one, which is like the older people, like older than our generation. Like I'm talking like 20-something, 30-something, maybe even 40-something. And those are the people who somehow, some way, watched the show before it even came out in English, period. They watched like the subbed VHS tapes, and I happen to own 3 of them. One of Dragon Ball Z, one of GT, and one of Dragon Ball Z, and then 2 of GT. The quality of the images normally wasn't that good. I mean, it was a VHS recording, so it was almost borderline bootleg, but it had subtitles, the yellow subtitles that were so common yet looked so bad. I don't know if there are any like different sort of translations. I know that they call Krillin Krillin, and I don't know what they did for everyone else. But, you know, I think they did a pretty good job. And then there are the people who, you know, grew up watching the dub, and those people are probably like seniors in high school or whatnot, maybe even in college. They're those people who got into the series. And then I'm sort of in a different sort of place. This is sort of the imaginary 5th way you could have gotten into Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball in general, if you really, I don't know. And of course there's the 6th way, where you've watched the entire thing in like every way possible, and like every date, but that's a different story. The 5th way I'm talking about is watching the old Funimation Dragon Ball dub. It's when they first used the Ocean Cast, because remember, like, Dragon Ball Z was the big one that made everything popular, but the dub of Dragon Ball out came first. It was short-lived. There was only like 20-something episodes or so. There's the Harmony Gold one, which is the one where they changed all the names. Then there's the old Funimation dub, which was actually, I think, a little more popular. You know, they had those theme songs, and they also did the movies, some of the movies. I watched that. The first form of Dragon Ball that I saw was the Curse of the Blood Rubies movie, and I just thought it was so good. It was so cool. I wanted to keep, you know, watching it, you know. It was almost like the whole Tails thing. I wanted more of Dragon Ball. And so I watched, you know, what I could get my hands on, which was really only one other VHS tape, which explained the whole origin of Oolong. I had only seen Curse of the Blood Ruby, so I really only knew about a few characters. And then, you know, I kind of let the whole thing slide away. I remember one thing and this was like when I was younger, keep that in mind. I think it was like 5 or 6, or maybe even 4. Probably 4. But, I remember I got like a string thing, and I put it on like the top of my ceiling, because we have like the styrofoam ceilings that kind of pop out. I put it there, and it started swinging back and forth, and I ended up scraping my finger. I remember that, and, you know, it was worth it to, you know, be like Goku for a little bit. And then 1st grade came around, and then Dragon Ball Z came around. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. That looks interesting. I don't remember what my thoughts were. I don't even think I cared about it. It was on TV, though, and I started watching it. It's like, huh. And I remembered, you know, Goku, as an adult, looked very familiar. It's like, wait, he looks really... that looks like Goku from Dragon Ball. It's like... And I was waiting for them to, like, say the character's name so I could get a whole idea on who it was. Like, wait, oh, that is Goku! It's like, sweet. This is Dragon Ball. Oh my god, this is awesome. And so, I, you know, started watching. It's like, sweet. This is awesome. I fell in love with the series immediately. Like I said, I only saw the Curse of the Blood Rubies, movie, and here I was coming in at, like, I think the 2nd episode of Dragon Ball. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't remember what episode they started with. I think they kind of didn't they cut out the 1st episode entirely, or like shortened it a little bit to make it better or something. I know they cut out some of the filler, like they cut out the whole robot thing where Gohan was met that. Anyway, and like I said, I've said like 3 times now, I first saw the Curse of the Blood Rubies. That's really all I saw. So I only recognized Goku, Bulma, Puar, Oolong, Master Roshi. I think. I can't remember if I ever saw. No, I don't think I saw Master Roshi. But I remembered Yamcha, Puar, Oolong. I think that might have been it. I remember, Shinron or Shinlong or whatever you want to call him. I call him Shinron. I remember Shinron. I think at that time they called him the Eternal Dragon. So, characters like Krillin, and a bunch of other, and Piccolo, they were all new to me. I don't even think I recognized, Master Roshi. I can't remember. I think I knew about the Kamehameha. I don't even think, no, I don't remember that much. This was a while ago. But I watched the series, and I remember seeing, Special Beam Cannon. That was pretty badass. And, I kept watching the show. Like, I watched it on, a basis. That was sort of the thing to do. I believe I've mentioned this before, that I watched Sailor Moon while waiting for Dragon Ball Z to come on. That sort of helped me to get into Sailor Moon. Anyway, so I kept watching the series. And then, the whole dub change happened where they started using the Funimation catch, which I like. Like I've mentioned before, I'm more of a Funimation person, and especially nowadays, regardless of I'm a fan of the dub, so I mean I didn't really have anything against the Funimation dub when it came out. I was like, okay, whatever. I just didn't like it because the voices were different, honestly. That was my main gripe. I actually stopped watching it for a little. Like, oh, it's so different. It's like, oh man, I can't watch it. Oh well, they're not that bad. I mean, they sounded, pretty close. Like, Vegeta sounded like pretty close. His voice was just a tad bit lower, which is what his voice should be anyway. It's bad enough that the dub has sort of had that problem now. I mean, Chris Sabat's current Vegeta, it's a step in the right direction, I think. But ultimately, I think the best Vegeta for English would have to be the guy from Final Bout. I still say that, because he matched the Japanese voice so perfectly. Anyway. And so, I watched the show, the dub thing, and saw the whole Frieza fight. And I was used to the Linda Young dub. I didn't really care about Frieza that much. I was one of those people who thought Frieza was a girl, and I remember arguing with, my babysitter one time that Frieza was actually a guy. Because I remember, when the Trunks thing came around, it was like, he's here, Piccolo said. It's like, oh, it's a guy. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's really hard to tell. Regardless of his voice, Frieza is pretty dang flamboyant. He has friggin' black lipstick on. He fights friggin' naked. I imagine, and then in the original version, you could probably see his wiener, or a little imprint of his wiener. Kind of like how when with the babies you can see their penises. I don't get why they show that. At least you see literally a little wingedy dong. It's like, why are you guys showing that? Why are you guys showing us their wieners? We don't want to see their wieners. But, yeah. Kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, Frieza, And I remember, I was on the bus one day, and it's like, one guy was talking, they were talking about Dragon Ball Z, and I heard this argument, was like, no, Frieza comes back as a robot. It's like, no, he doesn't, he dies. No, he comes back as a robot. It's like, huh. It's like, wait, that's stupid. Goku comes, like, wait a second. It's like, oh, that guy was right. Because then I got the Trunks video, and I saw Trunks. I didn't really think of him that much. I got the figures pretty early on, and they were already showing, some of the characters. They already showed Frieza's final form. They already showed Cell's final form. They were already showing Gotenks, and because we got two different kind of action figures. We got I think bits of the Ultimate Battle Collection, but repackaged. Then we got some AB group figures, which came with red Dragon Balls and weapons. Vegeta got a gun. That was kind of weird. But we were getting, certain stuff, and that's sort of what got me into Gotenks. Well, this guy's pimping. I need to friggin', look him up or something. This was before I really knew how to use the internet, believe it or not, so I didn't really think to, look him up on the internet. I didn't even think I could. I think that I wasn't allowed to yet. The most I looked up was either Ninja Turtles or Godzilla. Anyway. Then I kept over, and then they started doing the Androids, and I was like, sweet, they're gonna do effing an effing second part. You know, I kept watching the show. Da 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 da. And like I say, kind of going back to voice acting, I'm